Afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from the world. Uh, yeah, so today we're gonna look at special topic breaking down critical thinking. But I just wanted to let you know my back last week my back was killing me, as you guys knew, because I was in a different position on the live, but I showed up to the live for you guys anyway, and yeah, this week my back is a lot better, and actually I woke up. This was actually the first morning that I woke up with zero pain. It was getting progressively better and better, but then this morning zero pain. Had a great workout. Very happy about that. So yeah. But today I want to talk about critical thinking because, and what about critical thinking? A lot of us, we hear this idea of critical thinking a lot, right? But so many times, it's not well defined, right? People say, oh, use your critical thinking skills, be a better critical thinker, right? Oh, but don't you agree that this term itself has become really subjective, or sounds like it's become very biased, right? It's like, oh, be a better critical thinker. Usually, what that means when people say that is, oh, you should think better so you can arrive at my point of view. I actually think that the solution there's a lot of issues with people disagreeing in the world. There are a lot of issues with us even disagreeing with ourselves or being in conflict with ourselves from a personal development standpoint. I think a lot of the solution to this isn't to say, oh, yeah, come over to my side, come over to my point of view. It's actually not that at all. The solution is not persuasion, and also for personal development, with respect to personal development, the using critical thinking for our own personal development, the goal isn't persuasion either. It's not to convince yourself. I mean, trust me, I've been there, done that. Try to like, oh, brainwash yourself into. I love all these videos. Love, not really. All these videos on, success habits you'll see on YouTube, right? Brainwash yourself for success. That doesn't work. Like that's actually not a thing in behavioral science. That's not a thing. Um, I mean, yes, you can be very convinced of something. Um, I mean, you can even get into like cult-like belief. Yeah, sure. But this idea that you can just convince yourself to do something without your rational mind fully accepting it, it's very difficult because it causes a lot of cognitive dissonance. And as long as you have cognitive dissonance meaning you kind of feel, you understand that it's not, the answer isn't resolved, right? But you just continue on anyway, behaving in the way you want to because you're accepted by the group or whatever. So the idea here is I want to talk about uh, that's not the solution, right? Trying to convince other people or trying to convince ourselves from a personal standpoint, from a personal growth standpoint, like trying to just convince ourselves or persuade ourselves, that's not the answer. What we want to do with critical thinking, the real objective aim is, think of it this way. The end goal of critical thinking, there is no end goal in the sense of you should arrive at a certain viewpoint. You should arrive at some certain viewpoint. Let's say it's a political viewpoint or a social viewpoint or a personal standpoint, personal value standpoint. The goal is not should not be biased like that. Oh, our outcome is to reach a certain predetermined conclusion. No, the goal is to use a certain method. The method is the most important. The method we use for thinking is the most important. Not the predetermined conclusion. If we've already predetermined a conclusion, then it's by definition not critical thinking. Okay? So understand that that's the mindset that we have to start with, but there are methods above and beyond that. And I'm going to talk about, and feel free, guys, to chime in and say hello to me and tell me where you're coming from and all that cool stuff. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to know who's watching. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to understand how critical thinking actually helps us grow personally, helps us with our personal growth, and helps us with our success. However, we see that success, how that helps us with our success. Because, for those of you who are new to my channel and watching me for the first time, I mean, not only do I have, I have years of academic experience and all that great stuff, but I also have years of hands-on entrepreneur, very like sales, front-facing sales experience, and traditional storefront sales, kind of agency work, and all that stuff. I have lots and lots of experience with entrepreneurship too. So I know how this can be very theoretical. It can seem very theoretical, critical thinking, but and it can stay that way. Because look, a lot of academics love to sit in the chair and say, "Oh, I'm gonna satisfy myself while the world is burning. I'm gonna satisfy myself and just feel good about myself and talk about wonderful things." That's good. Listen, I love doing that. I love doing that, but we also want to look for results in the real world. So that's where I'm bringing some of my business experience in. Herman, welcome back. Yes, Austria, guten Tag. Um, so Nightfall, can you tell me what is critical thinking and studying and how you can help apply it? Yeah, so Herman, it's actually, yes, we're gonna get into that because the Socratic method. If you guys are familiar with the Socratic method, there are so many techniques nowadays. There's like NVC, nonviolent communication method. There's the, discourse theory. There are all these different frameworks, but a lot of them, Herman, it's true, they fall back on just the simple idea of engaging in a questioning process. And it all goes back to, the Socratic dialogue, right? So it's really interesting. And then Nightfall, I'm gonna do my best. So what I'm gonna do, Nightfall, is I'm gonna discuss some steps in critical thinking that I think a lot of us miss, to try to get as close to objectivity as we can, and how that's going to apply to personal growth more broadly, but yes, as a student as well. So the first question I like to start with, actually, or some of the first questions, let's ask this question. One, is the claim, right, when you're presented with a claim, and it could be a claim like, let's say as a student, Nightfall, right? Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough to do well in this class. Or it could be in your career. You might have some belief that it's not going to be probable. Like if I pursue this path, I'm just not going to succeed. Now, most kind of people in the success space would tell you, oh, just be positive. Don't think that way. It's a limiting belief. Okay. It might be. Here's my answer with critical thinking. It might be a limiting belief. It actually also might be true. But we don't know that until we start investigating, right? Like, it might be true. Or it might be false. A lot of these things a lot of them tend to be false, but we'll talk about that. How do we figure it out? So the first thing is, and feel free to note this or write this down, but is it what we like to call an a priori claim? So when you have the claim, is it what's called an a priori claim? Or is it an a posteriori claim? Another way you can think of it is, analytic. Is it a logical judgment, right? Is it just a logical statement that can be examined with logic alone? Or is it an empirical claim? So let's take the claim, I'm not good enough for this course. I'm not good enough to succeed in this course. Well, is that so it looks like it's an empirical claim. It's not something we can logically just deal with or analyze logically. We would have to kind of look at this empirically, okay? Empirically meaning it's something that we can examine in the real world, not just in the logical or mathematical world. We can observe, make some observations, and we can make some conclusions. So, for instance, if you're saying, well, I'm not good enough to do, I can't do well in this course. I'm not good enough to succeed in this path. All right. Well, break it down. If it's empirical, it's clearly something that's an empirical statement. it's something that we can examine in the real world, observe. So the key thing to ask here is what Karl Popper. I love Karl Popper. He really revolutionized by asking this question: is it falsifiable? And this is kind of like what the scientists do. Is it falsifiable? You don't want to say, is it verifiable? Don't do that. That was the mistake that A.J. Ayer, who is a thinker in this topic, in this area, that was a mistake he made. Don't try to verify it. You can always verify something that's a stupid claim. You can always, not always, but it's easier to verify something generally than to falsify it. You can always, it's what's called confirmation bias. You can always confirm what you believe, right? You can always look and nitpick and be selective about what you believe. So here's the first thing to notice. When you are examining this statement, I am not good enough to succeed in this path or that path or whatever, are you trying to verify the belief when you're examining it, or are you trying to falsify it? Let me give you an example. If I say I'm not good enough to succeed in this course, well, I might pay very close attention to the hey, grasshopper plus, don't worry, listen, you don't worry. Everybody can do critical thinking. It's actually, in a way, if this is like, oh, it's not really relatable, doesn't feel relatable, don't worry. Partially it's not your fault. A lot of our education system doesn't teach critical thinking anymore. A lot of just, it's not trendy and cool and popular to be a critical thinker, but it's something that we can change. And you don't have to have some innate ability. Like, we all have the ability to be good critical thinkers. Yeah, we all have the ability to. Okay. Hey, maybe, yeah. I've done some crazy stuff too that I regret, but hey, I've learned from it. So, no, but listen, it doesn't take some, oh, you have to be some elite, whatever. I do have an academic background and whatever and all that stuff, but you don't have to. You don't have to. Like, all of us can be better thinkers, right? So it's true. So just follow me. So if oh, thanks Nightfall. Thanks for subscribing. All right, and I'm glad I'm helping you a lot. So you can so follow me here. Am I verifying this or am I falsifying it? So I'm looking for the little things. Maybe I'm making mistakes. I can pay attention to the mistakes I've made. Or I can pay close attention to the mistakes I've made, and that will verify for me that, oh, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to achieve this, to pursue this path. Maybe it's a career path. I'm not good enough. I don't have, I don't have the skill set for it. So yeah, that's a reason that I won't succeed. You're verifying. That's actually a form of confirmation bias. And a lot of us think this way, and it's just it's not a good way of thinking. So what's a better way? What would falsification mean? So let's say, what would falsification look like in this from the standpoint of succeeding? Okay, I can't succeed at this course, or I'm not good enough to succeed at this course. Let's take that claim. Well, if I take that position and I want to falsify it, I want to try to disprove it, right? So falsification means trying to disprove it. If at the end of this is how science works. If you can't disprove it long enough, then it holds as a theory, right? So let's try to disprove it. Well, how do you disprove it? You don't want to confirm it like we've been doing, notice all your mistakes and all that stuff. Instead, what we do is we go back and we try to say, okay, well, what would be a scenario? If I want to prove this wrong, what would be a scenario in which I could succeed at this course? Would there be a possible scenario that I could succeed at this course? Hey, Red Edits, great question. I'm going to get to you in a moment, and welcome to the live stream. So yeah, you could ask yourself, would there be a situation? Yeah, maybe you can think of, that gets you in creative problem solving mode. Maybe I can think of 5 different situations. Maybe I need a tutor. Maybe I need to go to more office hours. Maybe I need to, so there are many different possibilities. And, then you see, actually, that becomes very hard. It's a very hard claim to prove wrong, right? It's very rare that somebody just doesn't have the innate ability to do something. Reddit, how to know you're right. So this is the humbling thing. This is actually my position. I think there are people who talk about, hey, we can have, this absolute knowledge. I take the position that I'm kind of agnostic about that. I don't know if we can have absolute knowledge, and maybe, maybe, uh, maybe that is, yeah, it's an interesting way of putting it. But I don't really know if we can have absolute knowledge, but I do know this, and this is very clear, is that we can do just good enough. We can do well enough. We could do just well enough. So meaning we can use the process that I'm going through here. For instance, we can get rid of cognitive bias, right? We can or try our best to avoid cognitive bias, right? Confirmation bias. We can try our best to falsify instead of verify our beliefs, falsify those beliefs, right? We can try to find exceptions, meaning that's what that means. Exceptions to that, right? In what situations would this claim that I have, this belief about myself or about this situation, would I have that would prove this wrong, right? And so we can get a more accurate perception of reality over time. I don't know if we can absolutely know something, right? Um, I don't know if we can know something absolutely, but we can do our best, right? So, and grasshopper, yeah, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your friends' nose. Well, depends on. Well, I think you could. I think you could, right? I think you could. I don't think that's. I think that's falsifiable, and I think I just falsified that. So, I do think that is quite possible. I can think of a possible world in which that's possible, right? So so that's my answer to how to know you're right. And actually, here's an important point about this. How can you know? How can I know I'm right? Because here's something very important too. Because I can't always know that I'm absolutely right. I I know I can do my best. I can only do my best. I therefore have to be very humble, right? I therefore, and we should all take this position, I therefore have to be very humble. I may think I'm right, but I have to reserve the possibility that I'm wrong. And that's where interaction with other people comes in. That's where like doing something like this comes in, is because I'm learning as much from you guys as you might be learning from me, right? I'm learning as much from you guys, right? Because it's a two-way street. I can't be right about everything. It's impossible, right? But you guys may have different perspectives than I do, and different experiences or different counter arguments, and so that's what makes interacting like this so powerful. In fact, there's a part of evolutionary theory which states, and I forget which researchers came up with this, but I have to go back and check. But there is a really strong hypothesis within evolutionary theory that states that the reason we survived and the reason we are able to figure out solutions to problems collectively has to do with our ability to interact with each other, disagree, and then come to some conclusions together. It's really a communal thing. Humans are really interesting and unique, at least among hominids, in terms of our ability to be able to do something like that. So it's a power, but we have to be humble, right? That's, I think, the key thing. We have to be humble. So we talked about, can I verify the claim? We talked about, can I falsify, right? Try falsification rather than verification. It would be the first thing to know. Another question I would ask is, and something that we're just not aware of a lot of the time, is the claim descriptive or is it evaluative? Is the claim descriptive? And I'm going to explain this. Is the claim descriptive or evaluative? And what does it mean? What's descriptive versus evaluative? So in value theory, something that's descriptive is just forget about value theory, just in general. I get too nerdy sometimes, so let me know if I'm like I get too theoretical and too nerdy sometimes. But um, basically, descriptive statements are are facts about the world that once again are physically verifiable. So, for instance, the ball fell on the ground, right? That's something that's a descriptive claim. The ball fell on the ground, or 20% of this demographic, tends to get this type of cancer or whatever, like that. Those are descriptive claims. Okay, but evaluative claims are claims that involve values. So let's take a look at the claim. I'm not good enough. I'm just not good enough to succeed in this career, in whatever career. So very interesting. You have to evaluate: is this a descriptive claim or is it an evaluative claim? It actually it's tricky because it might be either or, and actually it might be you might actually be making two claims. You might be making a descriptive claim. I do not have the skill sets. Translate this. I do not have the skill sets or the ability, right? Meaning I'm not good enough. Maybe that's what you mean. But there also could be a sneaky evaluative judgment there too about yourself, which is something like I don't have enough value personally to be able to do this. What are you actually saying? And most of the times when we are talking to ourselves, we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know what we're saying, right? And that's why like a lot of what we say to ourselves is BS, right? Because and it's fine. We should call ourselves out on our BS. Like the other day, I was like beating myself up about, like, not physically beating myself up, but it's an expression, but beating myself up about like something that I couldn't do. I forget exactly what the context was, but and I started to realize, oh, that's actually just a BS claim. T Coco, welcome. Do you think we should think less and just do? Actually, that's a good question. I love it. Because a lot of people, okay, we're gonna roll with this question right here. Because a lot of people stereotype, well, a lot of people stereotype me, right? If I talk, and especially in the past, I used to be this way. Only rational thinking, no emotional, right? No emotion. We should get rid of emotion completely. That's how I used to think. However, you're bringing up a very powerful point, okay? Because we often look at emotions and we often look at intuitions, and I think what you're referring to is really intuition, right? Our intuition, our gut. We often think of this as irrational. Oh, it's irrational. But okay, guys, we have this kind of programming in our brain, in our minds, for a reason, right? For an evolutionary reason, right? For a survival reason. There's a reason this actually works, this intuition. So, so doing without thinking may be harmful. So, okay, so there is a balancing act. Let's talk about this. This is actually really great. I want to first talk about intuition by talking about how neural networks work. Okay, because it's very important to understand this. How does a neural networks, meaning like powering AI and machine learning, and those at MIT they have these robots that can do backflips, and these robots that can be programmed or trained to walk on icy surfaces and know how to balance themselves when they're on the icy surfaces and all that stuff. Where does that come from? Are the robots, and this is a strong point about intuition here, right, Coco? Basically, where does that come from? Do they give the robots explicit rules? Do they say, oh, follow, when you're on the ice, balance like this? When you get the soccer ball, like for the soccer playing robots, the ones they have these ones that learn soccer and learn to be great soccer players. Do you kick the ball like this? They're not given these explicit rules. They're told, well, Herman, these are great insights. They're not given these explicit rules. They're actually given training. They're given training. They're, there's a whole very complex mathematical process that goes through the forward pass, the back propagation, right? They isolate what is working and what is not working, and then they incorporate that into how to behave. Now getting to intuition. Now, Herman, what you're talking about, you need a good educated mind to really trust your intuitions. Yes, and so much nonsense is sold as intuition. Yes. So this is now where we're getting, which is, and sorry about the hissing. That's my heater. That will turn off like in a moment. But basically, what was I going to say? So yeah, so we need to train our intuition. Is the bottom line. It's hard to trust your intuition when you don't have any previous experiences to draw from. Case in point, the neural networks, how do they work? Right? They work from all these little previous experiences that they've learned. They learn from all these little mistakes that they've made. And mistakes then are a good thing. Mistakes are really, really good. Mistakes are useful. They're data to train our intuition. And so yeah, so Herman, this is exactly where you're right. You get to a point where you have trained your intuition, to a point where you can actually start to really trust your intuition. Now, T-Kogi, you said there's a difference between thoughts and thinking, and thinking is, there is a difference between thoughts and thinking is metacognition. So not all thinking is metacognition. There are higher and lower forms of thinking. Metacognition is more like thinking about the thinking process. But there are different levels of thinking. You're definitely right. And then you said depression comes from overanalyzing every single thought. Yeah, okay. So there is actually an element to this. Now, I'm not a licensed medical professional and all of that, and so I you shouldn't take anything that I say about depression as advice or anything like that. But my background is in behavioral science, but it's not in clinical treatment and that kind of stuff. So depression comes from overanalyzing. So that is partially correct. Depression is a little bit more complicated than that, but what tends to be the case in depression is that people tend to ruminate when they're depressed, maybe overanalyze, and so actually it's kind of bicausal. That can cause depression, but depression can also cause that kind of thinking. So it's actually kind of bicausal. So it's a little bit more complicated, but that's true. So you point to something important. And Herman talked about, we talked about intuition, and Tikogu, you talked about overanalyzing, and this is where we have to have a balancing act, right? We cannot entirely depend on intuition all the time, but we also can't entirely depend on just rational thinking suppressing emotion all the time. That's not healthy either. So, and Nikhil, welcome. Yes, have a glorious morning. And Baiha, I hope I said that correctly. Baiha Entertainment. Oh, awesome. Greetings from Australia. I think you're the first person from Australia to jump on our live stream. We've had people from other places, but welcome. Glad to have you on here. I have not been to Australia yet. I love to travel. All right, and you guys know if you've watched any of my content, I'm going all over the place. But I love to travel. I have not been to Australia yet. That would be a very big kind of jet lag for me, but I would deal with it. I'm actually going probably to like on an Asia tour this coming year in 2025. So I don't know when. I haven't really arranged that yet, but maybe. I don't know if I could maybe make it to Australia at the same time. So I'll see. But T. Coco, so would you say depression is a state of mind or biological disorder? Well, so it's very clearly biological. it's very clearly it has a biological basis. If you're talking about like clinical depression, it has a biological basis. However, people can be depressed for largely psychological reasons. Now, how do you tease apart the psychological from the biological? It's a very good question, but I would say, so depression can be caused by uh, your interfacing with more with your interfacing with the environment and a social environment and social causation and these kinds of factors, and that could be more of a cause in one case, and then in another case it could be more biological, less having to do with anything social. You could have the most wonderful social life and all of that stuff, and still biologically there's something going on that makes someone depressed. So it depends. It is a case by case thing. But yeah. So we've gone through a lot of critical thinking hacks, all right, and critical thinking concepts. Stay tuned, guys, for more understanding of how we can use our mind to level up our personal growth, level up our impact on the world. And I'm actually going to address these two questions real quick. How does IQ affect thinking? IQ, read edits, IQ is actually a component of intelligence, just like height is a component of basketball ability. However, do you agree that your basketball ability is not determined solely by your height? No, it's not. It's not. It's a factor, but it's not determined solely by your height. So the same thing applies with IQ. IQ does not solely determine intelligence. There are other factors and and I'm gonna talk about this in a video soon in a few weeks. And then biological, you said, T. Coco, I mean, if it's biological, then it can only be remedied through pharmaceutical drugs, but some can be cured through therapy. Well, not necessarily. I mean, there is good research. Like, for instance, there's really really good research that exercise is one of the best things for depression. Again, don't construe this as like my medical advice. I'm not licensed to give this advice, but there's a lot of research just saying what the research shows. There's a lot of research showing exercise is incredible. It's like therapy for the brain, for the chemicals of the brain. Exercise is one of the most powerful drugs, so to speak, that really exists. It's incredible. And so a lot of people can benefit a lot from who have depression just from light exercise, going for walks, making it a habit to regularly exercise, maybe go to the gym, lift some weights, things that engage movement, engage our brain, and actually change our brain chemistry. It's amazing. So Nikhil, best way to get rid of depression is to listen to songs or Sanskrit rituals. Chat. I think you're talking about certain religious rituals, and yeah, being part of a community and things like that. It's been shown to really help as well. So guys, I always enjoy being here with you. Remember, my mission, especially if you're new to this channel, my mission, my absolute number one mission, the reason this channel exists is I want to help make critical thinking something that people find cool in a way and trendy, right, in our culture, something that becomes a cultural norm, right, to be a critical thinker, to be a reflective thinker. And we can do it. I can do it with your help, right, to spread this idea of using our critical thinking, training our mind, and being better thinkers, not accepting or rejecting right away a claim, but learning how to evaluate it and learning how to find common ground with people and be reflective and analytical in our thinking, right? So that's a big pathway to a better life, in my opinion. So and a better world. So thank you, Herman. Yeah, I appreciate. I can't do it. Listen, I can't do it by myself. I need help. I need other people who are dedicated to this mission too. So we can make a better world this way. We can make our lives better this way. So and of course, if you want to check out any of I have a course. I have a membership where you can work personally with me. You can check that out in my about section in my link. And yeah. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you guys. Love hanging out with you guys. Have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever that is for you. And be well. Take care.